The morning sun crests the Oregon pines, stretching long, thin shadows across the 5-acre homestead. Dew clings to the tall grass of the pasture, catching the light like scattered glass. This is the quiet hour, where the only sound is the rhythmic crunch of gravel underfoot and the distant low call of the morning wind. Rob and Sherry stand at the edge of the property, surveying the land they have shaped. Beside them, the 3 dogs hold their positions. Ranger stands at the front, his head tilted toward the tree line, ears twitching at the slightest rustle in the brush. Abby and Winter remain close to their owners, their eyes tracking the movement of the light across the fields. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine needles. Rob shifts his weight, his boots pressing into the soft soil. Rob gestures toward the wide expanse of the field, preparing to explain the nature of the life they have built here. The silence of the morning breaks as 3 figures emerge from the tree line. Jalen walks toward the center of the pasture, followed by John and Debbie, who have just stepped away from the chicken coop. The birds are still scratching at the earth behind them, but the focus shifts to the open field. Rob turns to greet them, his hands gesturing toward the dogs. "It is time to share the secrets of these companions," he says. The group gathers near the edge of the large pond, where the water is still and clear. Rob points toward the bank, and Abby immediately responds to the unspoken signal. She trots forward, her pace quickening as she nears the water's edge. Without hesitation, she leaps from the bank. The surface breaks with a sharp splash, sending ripples outward toward the reeds. She paddles forward, her head held high above the surface, moving with a fluid, natural grace that suggests she is more at home in the water than on land. The first lesson of the day is complete. The water still drips from Abby as she returns to the group, but the lesson shifts instantly. Rob reaches into a small container and produces a single raw egg. He holds it between his thumb and forefinger. "Fact 2, he says, his voice steady. "They possess a soft mouth." The onlookers lean in, their eyes fixed on the fragile object. Abby stops her pacing, her attention narrowing to the movement of Rob's hand. She does not lunge, she does not snap. Instead, she lowers her head, her ears tilted forward. Rob holds the egg out, steadying his hand as Abby approaches. She opens her jaws, the movement slow and deliberate. Her teeth touch the shell, but the pressure is non-existent. She holds it there, motionless, her eyes meeting Rob's. The tension in the air is palpable as the onlookers watch. She carefully places the egg back into Rob's waiting palm without a single crack. The demonstration is complete. The group moves across the pasture toward the herd. 6 cows graze in the tall grass, including a massive bull, and Little Hope, the baby calf. Rob gestures for Winter to step forward. "Fact 3, he says. They are highly intelligent and eager to please. Winter does not wait for a second command. She trots toward the center of the herd, her head low. She weaves between the legs of the large bull, her body fluid and precise. The bull shifts, but he does not charge. He simply turns his head to watch her progress. Winter moves deeper into the group, circling the baby calf without making a sound. She maintains a perfect distance, never crowding the animals, yet never losing her focus on the task. Jalen watches, her gaze fixed on the way Winter responds to every subtle shift in the herd's formation. The 4 Dorper lambs graze nearby, completely unbothered by the dog's presence. Winter stops, sits, and looks back at Rob, waiting for the next signal. She has navigated the complex environment with absolute calm. The lesson is clear. Her intelligence is not just a trait. It is a tool she uses to maintain order within the homestead. The group walks toward the lower pasture where the barnyard animals congregate. Rob stops near the gate, gesturing toward the ground. "Fact 4, he says. Golden retrievers are incredibly social." Before he even finishes the sentence, Lily the cat emerges from the shadows. She trots directly toward Abby, her tail held high. The onlookers hold their breath, expecting a chase, but Abby simply lowers her head to sniff the cat. Lily weaves between Abby's legs, rubbing her side against the dog's fur, and Abby does not flinch. She stands perfectly still, her tail wagging in a slow, steady arc. The harmony continues as they approach the pig pen. The two pigs, a large boar and a sow, trot toward the fence line as the dogs pass by. They grunt in a rhythmic, low-pitched greeting. The dogs stop, pressing their noses against the wire mesh. The boar pushes his snout through the opening. The dogs lean in, their ears relaxed and their bodies loose. There is no aggression, no territorial posturing, only a quiet, mutual acknowledgement between the species. Jalen watches the interaction, her eyes wide as she observes the ease with which the dogs accept the farm animals. The dogs are part of the barnyard community. The group follows the fence line toward the north pasture. The ground vibrates slightly as Barbie and Thunder trot toward the wooden rails. The two horses move with a heavy, rhythmic gait, their heads bobbing in unison. Up until this moment, the dogs have been loose and relaxed, their tails swaying with the rhythm of the walk. As the horses draw within 20 feet of the fence, the atmosphere changes. Ranger stops mid-stride. His head snaps toward the approaching animals. Abby and Winter follow suit, their ears pricked forward, their bodies stiffening instantly. The playful energy vanishes, replaced by a sharp, singular focus. They do not growl, and they do not pace. They simply lock their eyes onto the horses, their muscles coiled and ready. Rob watches the change, his hand resting on the fence post. The horses slow their trot, sensing the shift in the air, and come to a halt just a few yards from the dogs. The silence in the pasture deepens. Every movement from the horses is met with a corresponding adjustment in the dog's stance. The horses snort, but the dogs do not yield an inch of ground. Rob gestures toward the line formed by Ranger, Abby, and Winter. Fact 5, he says, his voice low. They are loyal guardians of the home. The dogs respond with precision. They do not bunch together. Instead, they spread out, creating a physical barrier between the visitors and the fence line. Ranger takes the center, his chest broad and his stance wide. Abby moves to the left, scanning the perimeter. Winter anchors the right, covering the gate. They stand perfectly still, a living fence of muscle and focus. When Barbie and Thunder shift their weight, tossing their heads and snorting, the dogs do not flinch. They do not bark or snap. They simply hold their ground, their eyes tracking every movement of the horses with calm, calculated intensity. The horses sense the boundary. They stop their pacing and settle into a quiet stand, respecting the space the dogs have claimed. Jalen watches, noting the silence. They are not acting out of fear, but out of a deep-seated instinct to protect the land. The homestead feels wrapped in a layer of invisible security. The dogs remain in their positions, their ears twitching at the slightest sound. They are the silent sentinels, holding the line as the afternoon light begins to fade. The sun dips toward the jagged line of the Oregon pines, pulling the warmth from the air. Long shadows stretch across the pasture, reaching for the feet of the visitors. As the light thins, it catches the fur of the three dogs. The coarse, dense coats of Ranger, Abby, and Winter begin to catch the dying rays, refracting the amber light, until they seem to burn with an inner fire. The harsh, protective intensity of their posture softens as the threat of the horses dissipates. They turn back toward Rob and Sherry, their movements fluid and light. The golden hue deepens, turning their fur into a brilliant, shimmering mantle that stands out against the darkening earth. Jalen steps forward, watching the way the light clings to them, highlighting the strength in their shoulders and the gentle curve of their heads. They are no longer just sentinels. They are the luminous center of this 5-acre world. Every step they take leaves a trail of warmth in the cooling twilight. The farm seems to quiet around them, as if the land itself recognizes the guardians who keep it whole. They move as one, a golden pulse against the deepening blue of the evening, embodying the balance of power and grace that defines the homestead. The visitors stand in silence, watching the dogs glow against the backdrop of the darkening pines. Rob turns toward the house, his hand signaling the end of the day. Sherry follows, her pace steady as the group begins the long walk across the cooling pasture. Ranger, Abby, and Winter do not rush. They fall into a loose formation, flanking the humans as they move through the tall grass. The air is crisp now, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. As they pass the coop, the chickens have already tucked themselves away, the ground silent. The dogs slow their pace, checking the perimeter one last time. Abby pauses near the fence line, her head turning toward the shadows. She waits until she hears the soft, rhythmic chewing of the herd before moving on. Winter trots past the pigs, her nose twitching at the scent of the straw. They are the pulse of this land, moving with a quiet, practiced efficiency that keeps the farm whole. The house looms ahead, its windows catching the fading light. As they reach the porch steps, the dogs stop, their tails sweeping the ground in slow, rhythmic arcs. They look back toward the fields. There is no tension left in their bodies, only a profound, grounded readiness. Rob rests a hand on Ranger's head, and the dog leans into the touch. They have shown the visitors that these animals are not merely companions. They are the foundation upon which the homestead rests. With a final, collective sigh, the dogs settle onto the wooden planks, their golden forms blending into the gathering dark. As the house lights flicker to life, signaling the end of the day's long watch,